Now, on yesterday's show, you may have heard the Palestinian ambassador Husam Zomlot argue that Israel's intention had always been to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza entirely. Today, let's hear the view of Mark Regev, senior advisor to Mr. Netanyahu and, indeed, the former Israeli ambassador to Britain. Mr. Regev, very good to see you there. Can I put to you, first of all, the suggestion from the Palestinian ambassador that you, as a country, intend to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza for good?
It's just not true. I don't know why he'd say such a thing or make such an allegation. What we have suggested, what is true, is we've asked Palestinian civilians to move out of harm's way. And if they're in the northern Gaza Strip, where there is intense fighting, we've suggested, and many of them have, in fact, heeded our advice, move to the south so as not to get caught up in the crossfire between Israeli forces and the Hamas terrorists. But that's common sense. You don't want to be in a combat zone and get hurt, yes?
Yeah. But Mr. Regev, are they actually safe in the south? Because there have been bombardments and missiles landing in the south as well.
First of all, the really intensive fighting is in the north. That's where the real danger is. It's true, Hamas has been firing rockets from its positions in the south, and we've been responding. But there's an area on the western side, close to the Mediterranean coast, of the southern Gaza Strip, which is close to the Rafah crossing where the aid is coming in, as you know, where we've designated a humanitarian safe zone. And the idea is for people to congregate there. The Jordanians, I believe, and the Emiratis have already set up field hospitals there. The French have sent a hospital ship which can anchor just off the coast. And the idea is that they're close to the humanitarian support. This will be the safe area. And because it's not a built-up area, an urban area where Hamas has built military infrastructure, there's really no need for fighting there as far as we can see. And therefore, it is a safer zone for people to be in.
I see that. Can I ask about the future? Because not just the Palestinian ambassador, but many people fear that the long-term aim is for Gaza no longer to be a Palestinian area at all, and Palestinians to be moved out of the area further into the south, into Sinai Desert or Egypt or anywhere else. Can you absolutely reassure people that Palestinians will be allowed and encouraged to live in Gaza after this is all over?
Unequivocally. All this is just ridiculous. Israel wants peace with Gaza. What has prevented us having a better relationship with Gaza is Hamas. You'll recall, Andrew, we're both old enough to remember that in 2005, Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip. We took down all the settlements. The settlers who didn't want to leave were forced to, by the rule of law. The police took them out. We redeployed behind the 1967 line, which the international community says is the international border, the recognized line. There's no reason for conflict between us and Gaza. It's unfortunately only because of Hamas, which is, as you know, a very extreme organization that refuses to accept the legitimacy of my country. They say Israel has no right to exist, not in any border. They say that any Arab who negotiates peace with Israel is a traitor to Islam and a traitor to the Arab world. And they say every Jew is a legitimate target. These people are the enemies of peace.
I'm not going to waste your time or my time trying to defend Hamas in any way at all. But I do want to ask you about the West Bank, where settlements continue to spread, where Palestinians have been evicted and killed, and in many people's view, without a change of policy by the Israeli government on the West Bank to remove some of those settlements, a two-state solution or a solution which allows Palestinians to live in both Gaza and the West Bank freely is not possible.
So our goal at the moment is to keep things as quiet as possible on the West Bank, because obviously we've got our hands full with Gaza. And so we've got no interest in an escalation there. Unfortunately, there are Hamas cells across the West Bank, and they have the opposite interest. They want to cause problems. And so we have been preempting. Our soldiers have been going in and arresting known Hamas activists. That's necessary. And so far, I think we can say we've been successful. The level of violence on the West Bank has been minor. We haven't seen there's anything close to what we've had coming out of Gaza.
Antony Blinken has said today that he sees the future of the Palestinians as being a single entity with the Palestinian Authority in charge. But your Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, has said that he sees Israel being in charge, certainly of security in Gaza, for some considerable time to come. So who's going to, in the end, win that argument?
So I'm not sure there is a huge argument, because Blinken also said in Tokyo today that He understands that Israel will have to have a security presence there, at least initially. And we make a distinction between a security envelope, a security presence, and between governing Gaza. We have no desire to reoccupy the Gaza Strip. We have no desire to govern the people of Gaza. We have no goal to rule the Gaza Strip. From our point of view, Gazans should rule themselves. But we can't ignore the security concerns. And when this is over, yes, and we will have defeated Hamas, it's very important that we don't allow a resurgent terrorist movement to come in its place. That was a mistake we made in the past. We paid for that mistake dearly on October 7th with the massacre of our people. We have to have our eyes on the ball and prevent a resurgent terrorist movement ever from taking over the Gaza Strip again.
Now, quite clearly, the government of Israel and the United Nations are at loggerheads. And today, a UN official has accused your government of war crimes and crimes against humanity. So I must ask you to respond.
Well, obviously, we don't accept that, Andrew. That is clearly not the case. In fact, if you look at what we're doing and you compare it to comparable situations like when the West was fighting ISIS in Mosul, or was fighting in Fallujah, yes, where there was also terrorist groups who had taken over urban areas, very similar to what's happening in Gaza City. I think you'll find that we made an effort to avoid human casualties that I think is even above and beyond what then the West and its allies did in those conflicts. I mean, we've asked people 3 weeks in advance to leave these zones of combat, to get out of harm's way. We've created humanitarian corridors for people to leave. And even today, when there are still a very small group of people who've stayed, civilians, we still make a maximum effort to distinguish between Hamas, who is our enemy, and the civilian population.
All right, Mr. Regev, thank you very much for talking to LBC tonight. It's appreciated.